What's up, fellas? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look back at one of the more interesting trades in recent NBA history, and that is the Kristaps Porzingis trade. This one, I specifically remember as one of the most shocking trades in league history. I just was not expecting this at all. KP seemed like a real staple of Knicks basketball, and it seemed like he went from someone that Knicks fans hated when they drafted him and became a really, really good player for them, a good young player, someone that was foundational to what they were building in New York, and within a span of a couple of hours, he was no longer a New York Knick. There was this meeting that was had, and he said, you know what, I don't know about my long-term commitment to the franchise. And they said, okay, you're gone. And all of a sudden, Kristaps Porzingis was a Dallas Maverick, and it was just so out of nowhere. And we made such quick snap decisions, and myself included, about the trade and about what it meant and about, who it really helped. And I think now is a really good time to revisit it because Porzingis himself is in a really interesting spot in his career now in Dallas, and the Knicks are looking like a more and more competent team all the time. And it's really interesting to look back on this deal specifically and re-examine it now a few years later, back in January of 2019. So we're now 2 full years removed from the Porzingis trade, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every day on this channel, so if you're looking for consistent NBA content, this is a great place to be. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well. Helps me out a ton, lets me know that you're enjoying the video, and helps get it out to more people on YouTube. And if you're interested in hanging out with me outside of these videos, there's a link tree in the description that has all of my socials right there in it. With those things said, let's look back at the Kristaps Porzingis trade. So the trade specifically, January 31st, 2019, Kristaps Porzingis was traded by the Knicks along with Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Courtney Lee to the Mavs in exchange for DeAndre Jordan, Wesley Matthews, Dennis Smith Jr., and 2 future firsts, one of which in 2021, the other of which in 2023, which is top 10 protected. Both of those picks coming from Dallas. And at the time, it was really, really clear that the Mavs won this trade. And, we didn't really know about the long-term health of Porzingis. We didn't really know exactly what was going to be happening there, but we knew that this honestly wasn't a ton of value because the built-in value here for New York was not really the picks, and it wasn't really the players. Those were nice, but the built-in value was the fact that they cleared cap space. They got rid of Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract. They got rid of Courtney Lee's contract, and they were going into the summer of 2019 with a ton of salary cap space and presumably in pole position to get someone like Kyrie Irving, to get someone like Kevin Durant, to get guys like that. That was the whole get Kyrie, get KD, get Zion, and you're good moment for the Knicks, right? And that was built-in value here that you don't really see when you just look at this trade here. Now, of course, they didn't end up using that 2019 salary cap space on anything all that significant, certainly not on the level of Kyrie and KD, but you could argue that right now the Knicks are in a really, really good spot as it relates to this trade, and that is because Porzingis has continually had lower body injury issues with Dallas and has not provided them nearly the same level of value that they would have hoped that he would. And he's a really, really interesting case right now because it's clear that he's talented and it's clear that he's a really good player. And it's clear that when he's healthy, he's a nice complement to Luka. But can he be the second best guy on a title team? That's certainly in question. Can he even be available enough to be the second best guy on a team? That's certainly in question. And he has also signed on a significant long-term deal. And if anything catastrophic happens to him injury-wise, that contract becomes a huge, huge negative for Dallas. So now when you look at the deal, you're starting to think, man, even though they didn't get good cap space out of this, right? Or even though they didn't get good use out of the cap space out of this, right? Like they didn't go out and get any big time free agents, even though that didn't happen. Even though the players were, non-existent in this deal. Like DeAndre Jordan might have hurt their free agency case. Wes Matthews was nothing. Dennis Smith Jr. has been literally nothing. Even though they didn't get anything out of the cap space of the players, just the picks alone might have been enough value for Kristaps Porzingis at this point because we have no idea what he's actually going to do to help Dallas moving forward because of all the injury stuff. And I think right now there's an argument to be made that if you're Dallas or if you're a team around the league or whoever, and you asked, hey, would you rather have Kristaps Porzingis in the exact same state that he is right now with the injury issues, with the long-term contract and all that, or these 2 future picks from Dallas? Which would you rather have? I think there's a scenario which Dallas would say would rather have the picks, and a lot of other teams around the league would say they would rather have the picks. Now, is it possible that Porzingis gets healthy and is a great running mate for Luka, and they end up getting their third guy in free agency at some point, and they're really, really good? Absolutely. But I think it's a question worth asking as you look back now on this trade is like, even though 2/3 of the trade meant literally nothing, the cap space and the players meant absolutely nothing to New York, did they still get really good value for Porzingis? I think the question is worth asking. And I think part of the reason why we were so down and things were so negative about New York, about this trade at the time. And I fell prey to this as well. And I don't think it was the wrong take, and it still might not be the wrong take long term, but it was because it was the Knicks, right? And we're so quick to jump on, what are the Knicks doing? This is a disaster. This is a young guy. I thought that they would be smarter than this. You know, they traded for cap space and they got nothing out of the cap space. And we're so quick to jump on, the Knicks are bad, the Knicks are bad. This was an awful mistake. And that could still be the case. But I think in hindsight, it's much clearer now that the injury stuff should have been considered much more heavily for a guy that was 7'3", that was recovering from a lower body injury, that has continued to, have issues with those type of injuries now moving forward. And a guy that, yes, was really good at the time, but hadn't necessarily proven anything, was a really, really good player and clearly had the upside and clearly had, the youth to be a good player. But now when you watch him, obviously not knowing if he's fully healthy or not, some of the athleticism isn't quite there. Some of the defensive stuff isn't quite there. The shooting is a bit overrated at this point. And it's like, what are we really getting here out of Porzingis? So at the time, it felt very rushed. It felt very Knicks-ish. But now we're looking and we're thinking, did Dallas make a significant mistake here? Not only because this draft class here in 2021 looks like a significant a class, certainly. We have no idea what 2023 is going to look like. But not only, are those picks valuable, but they also limit the ability of Dallas to make moves here in the future because it limits the years in which they can trade up, trade future first-round picks as they're trying to build something around Luka. And with Luka specifically, you have a window here where you have a legitimate MVP caliber guy that is incredibly young, that is going to be entering his prime over the next couple of seasons, and you only get a few chances at picking the right players to put around those types of guys. And if this Porzingis thing proves to be a huge, huge miss, that's a big question mark for Dallas moving forward, man. And I'm not ready to say that, they hugely lost this trade or they made a gigantic mistake, but I am willing to say that this needs to be re-examined. This needs to be looked at again, and we need to really think about, where the value came from on either side. And if New York had gotten literally anything out of these players, specifically Dennis Smith Jr. here being the young guy involved, this deal might have already, been a huge win for New York, even not knowing what's happening with KP here moving forward. And I think it also has to be considered that the Knicks are a competent team right now. Like, they are decent. They're not anything crazy, but, they appear to be on their way towards competence, which is something to be said for New York. And as they get more and more competent, these picks become more and more valuable to them because of their ability to actually make the correct moves with them, whether that be trading them or drafting the correct players. So ultimately, I think it's possible that we look at this in 2024. The Knicks have, 2 extra players on their roster as a result of these picks that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And KP is, somewhere on the shelf and just sitting on the bench making $30 million a year and is hurt all the time. And we're looking at this like, man, this was actually a huge move for the Knicks. It was a huge misstep by Dallas, and maybe Luka's unhappy, or they missed out on a window, or they didn't get their third guy because they, in the, whichever free agency summer, because they didn't have enough confidence that they had enough players, because they don't know if KP is going to be the best guy, second best guy on a championship team. I don't know. There's all these different factors, right? But I think it's worth looking at. It's worth paying attention to. This Porzingis trade as a whole and where it puts each of these teams, and the possibility that the outcome has been much, much different than what we anticipated that it would be at the time the deal was made. And that is going to be the end of today's video. I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker, as I said in the beginning. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, check out more videos from me on the boxes on screen. Sub to the channel as a whole. You can like the video as well. You can check me out at various socials in that link tree, as I said. And yeah, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.